as I continued to get arrested, the consequences kept getting heavier. So the last time I was 21, am I going to be, a perpetual inmate at the local county jail? Yeah. Or am I going to be able to do something similar to what I've been dreaming of my whole life? So I ended up going on this trip to Honduras, and it changed my life.
Welcome to the Afterthoughts podcast. Today we are joined by a great friend of ours named Riley Fuller.
Let's go, Riley!
You did it.
This is him.
Yeah,
this is him right here.
Our first friend in Austin. Is that fair to say?
Truly, our first friend in Austin.
Do you remember when we ice bathed together?
Dude,
Wow.
that was...
We didn't talk about that today.
Those were the days.
Oh,
I just
bro.
got a cold plunge.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I had done it
You've really
sporadically.
you've
Took
come a
me
long
7
way.
years
Yeah.
to catch up.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Another thing about Riley, in 2017 or 18, Steph and I came down here to do the first Vision Night for Red Rocks Austin. None of us had moved. We hadn't started the church. And that night we gathered probably 50 or 60 people at Peach Social House and just said, we're moving here. We're going to start a church. Here's how you could be a part of it. And Riley was there that night and brought coffee from Honduras. And
it was good.
And it was good. And shared that night. And it was like our very first thing we ever did as a church. You were there. So
I remember that. It was it started a huge ball of momentum.
Yeah.
Look
Huge
what it's
ball.
turned into here.
It's been
Dude.
it's been great being along the ride together.
Yeah.
Then we moved down here. Riley was our only friend. And thank you for continuing to be our friend through it all. But the reason Riley's here is he has an incredible organization that I'm representing today.
Yes.
Humanity and Hope.
I'll clap for that.
Humanity
Come
and
on.
Hope.
I'll clap for that.
You did it.
And is doing amazing work transforming communities in Honduras. So I want to hear about that. And for people who only listen to the very beginning of a podcast, one of the reasons that you're on here right now is because there's a really important initiative going on, building some homes, helping people in need. Can you tell us about that and how people can get involved?
Yes. Soundbite. We want you to come to Honduras and help a family build a home that's going to launch the generations of their family into levels of success, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that no one in their area has ever seen before. It'd be great if you could donate $20. What we're really looking for, though, is a burst of energy. People who care about families, people who want some of their effort to turn into a seed that's going to grow generationally and provide more opportunities to people who've had very few. That's what we're looking for. We really want your heart. We want you to come visit and give money if you can.
So good.
And $20, awesome. Or if you have $20,000, that funds the whole.
That would be an entire
correct?
home, and we will also take that.
Would be that would be awesome.
Also allowed.
If people want to connect with you guys do trips all through the year. If they want to go down there, help with a build, be a part of seeing what you're doing, they want to donate. What are the best ways for people to do that?
Follow us on Instagram, Humanity and Hope, or go to humanityandhopeunited.org.
And we'll link all that stuff.
Yeah, in both places, it's really easy to connect with a real person.
Nice.
So send a message to the email or to the message on Instagram, and you'll get a response within a day for sure. Within
You guys are very good about that.
Yeah.
So personal.
You don't have an AI chat bot?
what's AI? No, just kidding. I'm from Indiana. We know what AI is.
Normally I realize on like podcasts, they at the very end of the episode is when they actually give you the call to action.
I was going to
say,
say,
most people have phased out by then. So I wanted to make sure that got up front. And now
I feel like we just like reverse engineered podcasts in general.
See how
like
that goes.
we just gave like the end of the movie. And now for the rest of it, you're going to get the backstory that leads up to why that call to action was so impactful.
Yeah.
which is
Afterthoughts.
which is how so many great movies are, where you see and you're like, wait, that's going to happen. And then you get to, so we may have just reinvented podcasting.
Wow.
I just got to say, I thought it was going to be really nice to be here. It's way better than I thought.
Wow. Thank you, Riley. We are always trying to tell guests that.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the lead. Now we'll get into the story. But before we do, Riley, tell us a little bit about yourself and your family so we can get to know you.
Yeah. So I grew up in northern Indiana, a place called, I tell the story often, but Lake Tippecanoe. That
sounds like it's from a Nickelodeon show.
Yeah. Like that's the camp.
When you go there, so there are summer camps on the lake, lots of boats, fishing tournaments every Saturday. There's sailboat tournaments. I mean, it's like out of a movie.
That's amazing.
And my family had been in Indiana for 7 generations.
Yeah.
Wow.
They'd been building a business together. It was a corn and a wheat mill. They built it in the late 1800s on a north-south and east-west railroad track. So they could buy people's corn. They could, what's the word in English? Moler. They could mill it. And then they could ship it all across the country. And so over the generations, they started innovating. They were like, what if we made cornbread? What if we made, seasoning out of corn? What if we made the first instant pancake mix came from my family's?
No way.
No way.
Whoa.
It was called Fast Shake.
That's awesome.
And then they
I ate
started
a pancake today, honestly.
Wow.
Just to,
in honor of Riley.
I mean, if that's not.
There we
Riley's
go.
legacy.
Well, that's
Thank you for my
Danny
pancake.
Fuller, Dad. If you're listening to this, that one's for you.
Yes. Huge shout
They
out.
made, really like one of the biggest things in my family was chocolate wheat hot instant cereal.
Like malto meal?
Yeah, it was called Cocoa Wheats. Yeah, it was actually
dude.
our family's company was bought partially by Maltamil.
Okay.
Oh, wow. I love that as a kid.
and then
This
so-
is crazy.
this-
So
so
much
the-
of my breakfast
Yeah.
life has come from Riley's family, and I didn't even know it.
And it's the most important meal of the day.
Hey,
So
man.
he's the most important guest we've ever had.
and,
Maybe.
For generations, the Fuller family has been
Fiery.
about breakfast.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we got into coffees, teas, and brownies.
Which,
Right.
Anything dried was the point.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is that a lot of I can,
Such a good transition statement.
you guys know me, but I just love to tell stories, and I can often tell them without a point. If I'm not like,
you get to the end
If
and you're
I'm
like,
not
so
dialed in.
that's just all I was, that's just what I was
well,
going
I
to
get
tell
to
you.
the end of it, and I was like,
One of
man,
your problems
what was
is-
I trying to say?
You're such a
This
good
is fun,
You're
but-
such a good storyteller that people will just listen to you circle
Yeah.
the runway. You
Well,
know,
But if you don't tell
forever.
them you didn't know where you were going with it, they'll walk away like, he meant something. Like, I got to just think about it more and I'll find out.
I'm ready to
Is this a parable?
become a part of H&H. Do I have ears to hear? Let me hear.
It seems like I don't, because I have no idea why you told me that. Okay, so where you were going with this.
So where I was going with that is that, you only grow up in one family. But I know that in my family, it wasn't just what you talk about. I got to go into work with my mom and dad 6 days a week. I got to see how they really treated their employees as family. It's a small town. We're from a town of 10,000 people. Practically, let alone spiritually, you cannot burn people. Because then you end relationships and you start feuds and you can separate your family.
Yeah.
My family's experienced that. And so I really got to see what our family values in action looked like every day.
Yeah.
Excellence was one of those. Knowing who your customer was and taking care of them was a big one of those. Treating people right. All of those were values that my family had put in action for generations. And I got to see what the compound interest of it looked like.
Wow.
And it was magnetic. It really pulled me in. I wanted to, for a long time, be a cereal company owner. Like I really wanted to do this stuff. And then I applied those values. So like hard work and excellence were cornerstones of it. It wasn't, my family had gone to church, but it wasn't really Jesus fueled. It was like excellence and work ethic.
Yeah.
And treating people as a neighbor, even though like their beliefs didn't come from the Bible. So I applied that to basketball and soccer. Basically, I wanted to be an athlete, and I loved it. And I tried really hard, and I played sports, all year round. And that was my childhood. It was amazing. 10 out of 10.
Doug and I lived in Indiana for a couple of years in the 90s, and it was every day after school, sports until the sun went down. That culture is like, it's such a cool place to grow up and have a childhood, especially if you like sports. So I resonate with that.
You guys, there's just not a lot competing with it. Like there are not other options. You're not like, I'm going to go do this other thing.
That's part of the problem. Yeah, there's nothing cool to do. So it's like, let's play basketball,
Yeah.
which is great.
For people just tuning in, no, Doug did not suddenly just get incredibly good looking. This is our friend Riley Fuller. And
right here.
they didn't grow up together, but they both had spent time in Indiana.
Yeah,
Right.
And that's
probably
great.
ran into each other. Maybe we played each other in basketball
Probably.
somewhere along the way.
Okay, we're going to pause because there's a formative story of your life then from finishing like high school until now. But real quick, fill us in on your family today here in Austin.
Yeah. So I have a wife, beautiful, amazing wife, who is an incredible leader.
And could beat you up.
And
Does jujitsu.
She does jujitsu.
Yeah.
Wild.
She'll come choke me out like while I'm in the hammock.
Yeah.
Just try something on you.
She's a firecracker. She's the best.
Yeah.
Nas.
And then
Nas.
Nas, yeah. And then 3 kids, 5, 7, and 11. My kids are also, they're great. You know, they each have their own, obviously, personality and spirit and pursuits. Yeah. My oldest son loves soccer, and he's amazing at it.
Cool.
Middle loves jujitsu. My Zeke, who recently asked about your Zeke.
We both have a Zeke.
Yeah. Confusing.
And
Very confusing for me.
They're great guys.
As your friends.
When they met, it was like the first time they'd met another Zeke. So they were like,
They were blown away by it. They were blown away by
wait,
it.
are you me? How does this work?
Yeah, I mean, my Zeke still remembers it and talks about it.
Yeah.
And then Misha, our daughter, she's 5.
Yeah.
She's our princess.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Huge personality.
Dude. All right. Well, we're going to dive into the story of how H&H started and all that. But first, to make this the experience of a lifetime for you, we're going to let Kayla ask you some questions. We do have a segment called Questions with Kayla.
Yes.
More and more people.
This is why I picked you guys over Rogan.
Yeah.
Rogan doesn't have questions with Kayla.
He doesn't have Kayla. When I say more and more people, it's like 2 or 3 people. But
Yes.
when people are like, they visit or, you know, that we've never met before and they're like, I listen to the podcast. I love it. They're always like, is Kayla around?
Yeah.
That's who people really listen for. Kayla's the
Thank
star.
you.
So
Thanks.
Thanks for being here, Kayla.
thank you,
Thank you for
Kayla.
having
Great to have
me.
you back, Kayla.
Yes. Thank you guys.
As always, as a recurring guest.
Yes.
every
Recurring.
week.
Yes.
90 sometimes.
Yes.
Kayla, this is Riley. Would you
Hi,
ask him
Riley.
some questions?
Yes. Well, I have a few questions, but one I had to recently add. I love breakfast. That's like my favorite meal of the day. So what is your go-to breakfast?
Great question.
Like what like favorite? Maybe not go-to, but like your favorite
Oh, my
drink.
favorite. All right, I'm going to answer that in 2 parts.
Okay.
Juiceland is like if I just get to pick any breakfast and I'm not worried about the value, how much money I'm spending, Juiceland. Yeah. They recently, this is a little Juiceland promo. They came out with a smoothie this weekend that has 50 grams of protein in it.
Wow.
Wow.
And it tastes decent. So,
Decent.
Okay.
We'll take it.
and
you're
then the
going
other one,
smoothie, really?
no, like that's just if I'm like on the go,
Okay.
you know, normal like dad mood, a little bit in a hurry.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I'd just pick like an all-American breakfast, probably from Kirby Lane. I'd get a chocolate chip and a blueberry pancake, probably 3 eggs, bacon,
There you go.
potatoes, you know, just like,
Come on.
The whole thing.
yeah, I'm not blowing anybody
Is
out
it
of
hard
water
for
here.
you to get coffee at a place like Kirby Lane? No, not throwing stones at Kirby Lane.
Hey, man.
But you're such a coffee guy. That is a bit of a letdown when you go to a spot like that.
I'm gonna, this is a tough spot to be in, but, cause I don't want to speak ill of anyone.
Of course.
But this goes for Kirby Lane. Gyms. I don't know if you guys have ever been at gyms, but I find myself there every once in a while. It's kind of a diner spot.
Okay.
I'm not able to order coffee there. I just can't get myself
I understand.
to do it.
What do you, is it most of those places kind of like a Folgers type situation?
Probably.
At best.
Yeah.
Understood.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, this might be our most controversial episode
yeah.
ever now. And that's fine.
Kirby Lane, if you're out there, I'm sorry.
You have great.
we love you.
You have
yeah,
great.
I did
other-
pick you as my breakfast
Yeah,
winner.
that's right.
Other things are great, just not known for their coffee. But
Yeah.
I don't think they would claim to be. So
Yes.
that's fine.
Okay, my next question. These are like fun questions, get you loosened up.
I appreciate it.
Yes. Because I know you're super nervous right now. This
Yeah.
is a big deal.
It started off. Jeez,
Yeah,
guys.
pretty.
We win big.
Yeah, we did. So this is like to level you out a little bit.
Okay.
It's your last day. What are your top 3 places that you're gonna go?
Last
gosh,
day
I'm so
on
sorry.
Earth.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, it's not like we're not thinking morbid though.
it's a sad
just
question.
like, you know, it's happy question.
Feeling very mortal.
It's
Jesus is
See,
coming back.
you know,
everybody's
tomorrow.
good.
Jesus
Yeah.
comes back tomorrow. So what are you
Yeah.
doing today?
So that means it's the best day ever. Like you're like, woo. Okay,
Totally.
we're now thinking happy thoughts.
Yeah.
We could-
Oh, okay.
let's-
Well,
let's reframe
yeah,
this
I mean,
to like maybe it's the last day of summer vacation, and you got to go back to school tomorrow.
okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. And I have a
Last day of
supersonic jet
freedom. Yeah.
where I can teleport.
Yes.
Yeah, travel is no problem.
I do these questions with my kids all the time. Thank you.
You are.
I would pick. Gosh,
Riley
this
is aware that he won't be here forever.
this is so.
Everyone dies.
Oh man. Okay. So the way that my
Everyone's
mind
doing
would
it.
work
It's all the
what it
rage.
would work on this
100% of
would be
people,
like,
except for one.
where
Yeah.
are the
Like
people I love most
Okay.
concentrated? And then
Okay.
how can I visit those 3 spots that have like the most concentrated amounts of people I love
Okay.
before?
That's a good answer.
And so that would probably be Lake Tippecanoe, Indiana, Warsaw, Indiana, El Progreso, Honduras,
Yeah, of course.
and Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
There you go. Did you move from Denver?
No, but I grew up in Indiana, and all of my childhood friends, all my best friends, there's a group of 5 of us, they all moved to Denver.
Gotcha.
And I made a commitment to move there, but then I got married and was like, I'll make it. And we're still kind of in that process.
Yeah.
But I don't plan on, if they're listening, which they probably are, I don't plan on making it today.
Listen, man, Austin's better than Denver. We can tell you that. You picked right.
Austin is pretty great.
Yeah, but it would be
Yeah.
because
No
of
offense
people,
to Denver.
not
No
because
offense
of
to
the
Kirby
place.
Lane.
We love
No offense
Denver.
to Folgers.
Gosh,
no,
we're stepping on
no
a lot of
offense
toes
to
in the
gyms.
first 15 minutes of this.
Isn't it amazing though that
All right, I'm going to try to bring it more to center. This has been,
yeah,
we're taking shots at everybody here.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. Kayla, anything
Okay.
else?
One more. If you could relive any moment in your life again, so like maybe it was like a day or just like a specific moment, what is that? Describe that to us.
Let's say
That's
you
a
can't
great
say the
question.
Red Rocks Austin Vision night. Okay,
Yeah.
anything other than that.
Okay.
Other than that night,
I was going to say,
it.
I was
That
actually
was the
going to
obvious.
say this podcast.
Yeah.
you'd be back. The clock would be back at 0. We'd just be starting.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's such a good question. I would say, I feel like the memories that you have when you're a kid, like they're stronger.
Yeah.
And so like that's where I start to go
Yeah.
to. When I was 17, the soccer team I was on, my high school soccer team, ended up, we were top 4 in the state.
Okay.
We went to semi-state. We'd been playing together since we were like 9 years old. And my high school had never like even made it out of the first round before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so happy and yet like so real world, like you lose, you don't win the championship.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I was so, and like being so connected with a team, it's
Yeah.
hard to find that when you're an adult.
That's awesome.
So I would say that one, that was really fun.
That's good.
That's sweet.
Do you have an answer for that, Ryan? It's a good question.
Thanks.
It is.
Would you relive it with your current awareness, or you'd be back in that moment just as a kid or whatever?
That's a good question. Let's say like you're aware of like you're reliving it, so like you maybe get to savor it a little bit more.
Oh.
I could come up with so many. I love this question.
If with that, you could relive your birth because you'd be aware of it.
Oh my, I would definitely not pick that.
Yeah.
Craziest experience of your life.
Yeah.
sure.
That would be really claustrophobic. I don't think I'd want to do that. That'd be terrifying.
I've spent a lot of time at Schlitterbahn this summer.
Yeah. That would be terrifying. I
Yeah.
think.
No, thank you.
I have the first one that popped into my mind was
You're thinking about that now.
Doug's
Just throwing you for a loop.
7th birthday,
Oh.
Indiana. And it was just in our backyard. All the neighborhood kids were there. We like tie-dyed t-shirts for like uniforms or jerseys. And then we were split into teams, and it was like a competition night all night long, like different like a field day basically. And I remember having this like core memory of it being late. It was probably like 11 p.m. or whatever, and we were still out there, and there was like fireflies everywhere playing soccer. Like innocence of like a summer night in Indiana that I've just never forgotten about.
Wow. At Tippecanoe. Like
Wow.
It was not. I wish.
It sounds amazing.
Thanks, man.
That's great. My answer is I think it was my 6th birthday. I came downstairs and my parents had a cardboard cutout of Barney, and I thought it was Barney
Oh.
and got really excited that Barney was at my house, and then it wasn't Barney. And my brother has made fun of me for the rest of my life for that. So I would go back to that moment, but I'd have this awareness, so I could walk down the stairs and be like, "That's not Barney. Let's move on to my party."
Oh. My.
So there it is.
Wow.
Thank you for your questions.
You're welcome.
Austin's still reeling over there about me saying someone could relive their birth and be consciously aware of what was going on. He's having a tough time. Sorry. Riley, well, let's segue from that to your story of how you got to be a founder and the guy who's running an amazing nonprofit. You've lived a very different path than most people, and the path you were on. Tell us the backstory of how you got to the point of starting H&H.
Yeah. Well, man, So I still consider myself 15 years in a very unlikely spot for me.
Yeah.
Growing up in my family business, service isn't a part of business. It doesn't, it's not a business model. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to build an organization around it in a lot of mindsets. And so, I bet, I always thought through an owner mentality, like an econ class. I was always thinking about like, I'm the guy who owns all these assets. Like I'm the one who controls, the macroeconomic activity, just always thinking like an owner. And so that led me in school. And I told you guys about my family business. I ended up like growing my ambitions and thinking, and I'm embarrassed of this now, like in a way, but thinking, oh, Indiana is too little for me. I'm too, just full of like the pride of, I don't know what, youth or.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, so I was like, oh, I'm going to be bigger and better than this. I'm going to go into investment banking. And at the time, just as an honest aside, I was really struggling with both my mental health, a lot of anxiety, a ton of depression, and substance abuse, which I've shared a lot with you guys outside of the podcast. And I'm now sober, been in AA for years, recommend that to anybody who, like me, knows who you are on the inside, but feels trapped like in behaviors that are on the opposite of who you know yourself to be. So anyway, with that being the background, I come up with these thoughts that like I'm going to be different and better, than anybody in my family, and I'm going to go achieve, and I'm going to make it to New York or whatever. So I get a degree in finance. I get on this course to investment banking because of the struggles mentally, because of the addiction. I end up getting arrested 11 times between 19 and 21.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. Like, think about getting arrested one time, and then to do that over and over a course of years, not only, it takes so many different kinds of tolls on you, but for me, and I know you guys will relate to this, it took a toll on who I believed myself to be.
Yeah.
And I believed myself to just be bad, to be a piece of crap, to be somebody who always wants to do the best and never does. And so I was carrying that too. And as I continued to get arrested, the consequences kept getting heavier. So the last time I was 21, and I always got, just for anybody out there who's curious, like I never hurt anybody. I always got arrested for drinking, for public intoxication, for possession of this or that. And on the last one, it was my second DUI in 10 months. So I went to jail for a month. And I could talk about that for a long time. I remember going in and just feeling like I was going to have a heart attack, thinking about spending a month in jail. Like I couldn't breathe, tons of conflict, really difficult. You can't sleep, food's terrible. Anyway, after that, it was growing up in this tiny little town in an ideal childhood, with my parents being somebody in the community, finding myself in jail multiple times, including living there for a month, was just so different, than anything I'd ever imagined. And so as I'm getting out, like I'm believing myself, like, am I going to be, a perpetual inmate at the local county jail? Or am I going to be able to do something similar to what I've been dreaming of my whole life? So somehow I get this internship with Lincoln Financial Group, big Fortune 500 company. I get at it, I do this internship. I go to jail, and I'm planning on continuing the internship once I get out. And instead, my dad comes to me and he's like, "Hey, if you want to be a part of our family, I'm always going to love you. I'm always going to have a place for you. But if you want to have a role like the other people in our family have a role, then you need to change your mind. And so I want you to come down to Honduras with me." And that invite changed my life. He'd invited me the summer before, and I rejected him. And he gave me a couple rules. He's like, "All right, fine. You don't have to come." But he just gotten a new car. He's like, "Don't drive my new car. Don't drive the boat." And so anyway, as soon as he left, I drove his new car. I hit a deer. going like 80 miles an hour. So it destroyed the new car. So I'd already had Honduras baggage. Go ahead.
No. Go. It was going to be a bad oh dear pun. And I didn't do it. And now I'm glad I didn't, but I wish I had.
Well, I called it out. I called it out.
You saw it. I pulled it out of me. Good work.
So anyway, so like with all of this backstory, like I turned down Honduras. I'd, basically been living differently than my family. Stopped living by our values. And my dad throws me this lifeline, for the second time, because I'd rejected him the first time. And so I ended up going on this trip to Honduras, and it changed my life, and still continues to put thoughts and feelings into me. They continue to like reorient me and to change my life. The long and the short of it is, we land in Honduras, we make it to a rural community, within, an hour or two, because they're everywhere. And as soon as we make it out there, the norm is that, people live in houses made out of things that they've found. Most people don't have clean water. No one has ever graduated in this community elementary school. They were living right beside a trash dump because it's where they could find, things to build with and food. They didn't have electricity. Talking to the people, I could speak Spanish. That was part of my soccer playing career, is that I picked up a Spanish major. Nobody had jobs. The men weren't working. The women didn't even think about working. They were just, hoping to provide. And so, and as soon as I walked into this community, there was a guy laying on the ground in the front of the community who had just had his leg macheted. And so it's really intense to go into, and you guys, you've traveled, it's really intense to go in a place where there's that much suffering, especially if you're a person who likes people, and then to see that machete thing on top of that was really intense for me. And so this thought dawned on me, holy cow, I have won the birth lottery. At one point, all of our souls are in God's hand. And then another point, they're here. None of us have any agency or choice over, what time period we start in, what the beliefs of the government are, what the economic situation is. It's just all given to us. And so I'd never been thankful. I'd been, like I told you, like trying to outperform my own family, which is such an unhelpful, like unconnected, disconnected thought. So in that moment, this thought of the birth lottery, I'd never thought about things like that before. I was thinking about making money.
Right.
And so this thought of the birth lottery hits me. This thought that I had won it hit me. And then the next thought is like, what do you do with that? And so that was that first trip. Wow. I wasn't a believer at that point. This group was there to evangelize. And they because I had long hair at that point, they picked me to be Jesus as a non-believer.
For like the skit or whatever.
Yeah. And honestly, I just became so attracted to like this struggling because it didn't seem like there was any solution, and it didn't seem like there was any excellence pouring into it. Didn't seem like there was any long-term strategy or vision. It didn't seem like there was anybody, because of the financial situation of it, like treating people from rural communities like they had the weight of clients, like they could be the ones directing investments, and ideas, and especially emotions. It was all, hey, I have the money, so I'm going to tell you what to do. And then just immediately, I think, as a gift from God, I perceived, I was like, there's no way that can ever be successful. And something needs to be successful.
Jeez.
So you came back from that experience, got your world rocked. Then what happened?
Well, I wasn't a believer, and that's a really big part of the story, because I didn't have anything, like I was feeling, and experiencing all these things. They were really meaningful to me, and made me feel alive. Like that's how I could tell that it was important. I'm getting the goosebumps right now. That's how I could tell it was important, and like leading me forward, because I could feel alive. And in everything else I did, I could feel successful, but it's so different, than like really feeling alive, feeling the Holy Spirit inside of you. So I had all of that, but I also had, the momentum of everything I'd been building myself to be up to that point. Someone who's pursuing power, someone who loves money, someone who thinks about himself all the time, So I come back to the US and I'm like, those were crazy thoughts that I had in Honduras. Like I'm going to drop all that.
Yeah. I was
like-
emotional. I was tired. Yeah.
You feel like you come back here and you like sober up to how it's supposed to be when actually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Is when you were there, you're getting a taste of how Jesus actually intended for us to live.
Right.
But it takes a while to start to realize that.
Yeah.
It's not upside down. It's actually right side up, if you will.
Wow.
I will.
I also will.
Thanks for supporting my book.
So I come back. Like I said, I'm not a believer. So it's really easy for this stuff to just kind of feel like a hallucination.
Yeah.
Man.
You know, and I'm a huge dreamer. And so I think I could feel that I had felt some hallucinations up to that point. Like when you're dreaming and mentally unhealthy, it's kind of normal, you know, to feel some of those weird thoughts. And so I'm like, man, that was another one. That was weird.
Yeah.
And so I go, you know, full steam back into the life that I had before, but with a little bit of curiosity about the people who are struggling with poverty, suffering from the effects of poverty. So, I just go back into this job, and I didn't think about Honduras or go back to Honduras for 2 years after that.
What led you back?
Mental breakdown.
Yeah.
I'd been pursuing. So my first job, super cool. In the middle of 2008, the last financial crisis, I step in, you know, the most junior guy, 22 years old. Everybody starts getting fired. And my company, you know, doesn't lose they're losing money on the investment value, but they keep the same assets under management. And so they got to do the work they were doing before and with less people. So I ended up picking up all this really cool work. And my first job, I was managing $1 billion of collateralized debt.
Jeez.
You know, trading on Wall Street every day, you know, up to probably $100 million, which like when none of it was my money. It sounds really cool, but like I don't have anything to do with it. But when you trade that kind of stuff, people take you to really fancy dinners, fancy like sailing tournaments, you know, golf tournaments, tennis tournaments. And so I got really into that world, and making money. And so with that for me came like wanting to stay up longer, wanting to, you know, like have some time to have a personal life outside of work, which meant less sleep, more staying up, more drugs. And so the sum total of all of the drugs and selfishness made me feel like at 24 years old, you know, like I didn't want to be here anymore. You know, like if this was all if I could be successful, you know, and all these goals that I'm setting and never feel, you know, connected to my family, never feel like connected to my true self and like pursuing not just something that I want to, but something that's deep and important and benefits, you know, more than just me. I guess I was having an existential crisis. I was like, I felt like a terrible person. And I knew I didn't want to be.
Wow. So you had a breakdown, went back to Honduras.
I go back to Honduras. I'm like, man, the one time, and this has been the orienting thought for me, the last time I really felt alive, you know, I feel the life just seeping out of me, you know, and I feel like, and this is weird, but you know, I'm kind of weird, but I felt like the spirit of death, you know, was just like chilling like over my house. And so I'm like, man, I got these options, you know, I can just like give up but I don't want to, you know? So I'm like, all right, you know, when's the last place I felt alive? What can I do to feel alive?
So that memory's still there. Like you keep coming back to that summer in Honduras every once in a while.
I did then. And it's kind of like a gift, you know, because I'd been living at such a fast paced and a shallow level, very, you know, just all oriented around myself, which I think is pretty common for someone in their 20s.
Especially in America.
Yeah. Right. It's just kind of the soup that we're cooked in. And then
that's a good way to say that. The soup that we're cooked in. I like that.
And and then so as a gift, you know, this thought comes back to me. It's like, oh man, not only I remember I felt alive, and I remember, and I think it's either you or Doug who puts it this way, but I remember I felt a download in my heart.
Yeah, it was Ryan.
That was right. It's always Ryan. If it would have been about,
we share everything.
He's not here, so it's easy to bash. If it would have been about like gray hair,
he's not profound. Ryan's the deep one.
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
So
Download in your heart.
Yeah. So I get this download in my heart that like, this is the last time I felt alive. And I was given a vision. I didn't feel like I'd been given a vision about really anything in my life. But I feel like I had a vision in Honduras, maybe not for how things looked, but like the values that we could hold and a product that we could pursue together that was a mindset, not a solution to like a, one problem, but the thinking that would solve it.
Yeah.
So I started to talk to a buddy of mine. I was like, hey man, I'm thinking about doing something different. Like nobody does this kind of stuff. Here's how it makes sense. Would you want to come to Honduras with me? And then he came down. He was like, this is great. If you ever want to do this, I'll do the accounting. I'll do the legal paperwork to get it started. And then, just that little bit of momentum parlayed into legally a new organization starting. And I still, after that, I still worked in the corporate world doing the same things I've been doing for 3 years. Yeah. And was doing, like on the weekends, I would do Humanity and Hope.
Wow.
Try to fly down to Honduras, staff the team, get to meet the communities, understand their leadership, understand the leadership's priorities, make sure the leadership's getting together. And that was the start. And none of it was, like all of it was really wanting to help generations of families launch themselves. Like in places where there had been no success stories, like we wanted to create the first and then the second and then the third, and then hearts that are so generous and alive that like they really care about doing that same thing locally too. That's what, and that's how it all started.
What year did you start H&H?
2010.
And what was your first, I guess, goal or plan? Like you're kind of like, let's start something here to help generations of people. What did you guys start with doing?
Yeah. So I was 25 and the first board that I put together I was the oldest. So it had
That's awesome.
a 22-year-old. I mean, you guys know what this like starting Red Rocks Austin. And there were 5 of us. And there's so many stories that I can't tell, which is all I'm thinking of right now. But so we go down and our model has always been that excellent work starts with listening. You need to know, well, when you're doing this kind of work, community development or community transformation, like you need to know what's important to the people that you're working with to be able to do anything valuable. Yeah. So we go down there and we're like, hey, y'all, we're a bunch of 20-something-year-olds from the United States. What's your life like? What are your goals? What do you want for your kids that you haven't been able to experience? Like all of these super fascinating, really deep questions. Yeah. But it just started getting experience sitting with families. And I look back and it's like, I can't believe I did it that way. Because like I don't know, some of the beliefs that I had about me being superior were still there. The ability to listen and fully be present and to let someone like just bring themselves out. Like I wasn't really doing that, honestly. But it led to our first goal, and it was a start. We were doing it with a heart that really wanted to help.
Yeah.
And so anyway, after listening, these people, they didn't have water and they wanted to pursue getting clean water first. So we went home and we raised money to build a well. We come back down and they had a well. And no joke. And so we're like, holy cow, do we return the money? Should we fold the nonprofit? Like, and there's, you can do anything with this. Should we do this? Should we do that?
Oh yeah.
And so we're like, no, excellent work starts with listening. Let's go to the community leaders. Let's stick to our little process here. And they were like, yeah, we have clean water, but we're still carrying it, quarter mile each way. So would you guys help us with this money you raised, pipe the water from the well to our houses? And so that's we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the first. The second one was a Tabasco chili project. The guy I hired to lead it, I'm looking at excellence and success, not, who you are on the inside at this point. And he was just, I don't even know how to describe it. He was very demanding and like didn't have any ability to connect. It was more like do what I say, not what I do. Yeah. He would like be telling people what to do while sitting under a mango tree, the shirt lifted up over his stomach, like rubbing his belly. And so it didn't work. And so we had this whole beautiful plantation of Tabasco chilies, a deal to sell them after harvest. And the people who were working there were struggling. They didn't have enough money to buy groceries, but they disliked the guy who I'd hired so much that to spite him, they refused to show up during the harvest.
Wow.
So the first two things that we did, the clean water and the chilies were far from being successful. Well, the water ended up being, but we didn't get to invest in what we told our donors we were going to.
I think there's like a really important learning here. Thanks for sharing those stories, because so often we've fallen into the trap over the years. We've made so many mistakes over the years, and we've always felt like maybe we're just not cut out for this, whatever, whether it was missions or writing or the church or whatever. And then the further along you get, the more you realize like that's everybody. Like that's, of course, we don't know exactly how to do all of these things that we're doing. We've never done this before. We're humans trying to figure it out. And so I love hearing like, I think one of the reasons why there's so many origin stories movies out today is because what we're all realizing is everyone's just a broken, imperfect person trying to figure it out. And if that encourages anyone who's listening or watching this, like the way that you learn is by just taking steps and making mistakes and then being humble enough to sit and listen and learn from mistakes and adjust. And so those first two stories I feel like are crucial. Thank you for sharing.
And a lot of people that started something that today is looked at as very successful, they're always talking about embrace failure.
Yeah.
Because that's not like an optional part of it. It's just gonna happen. And it can be really refining for your vision because you found out probably a lot of things you wanted to change or adapt or do differently, but you also stuck to, but we know this is who we are and how we want to approach this. So let's keep that. And even though this didn't go well, we now know kind of a little more of what we're resolved to do, and we're also open to adapt and change. And both of those things can happen if you'll embrace the failure rather than let it define or discourage you to just fold the whole thing in, which would sound a lot easier. But then 15 years now, you've been refining, but sticking to that same vision in relationship building and community transformation. Fast forward that, and then we'll get some stories in between. You start those first two projects, don't go at all how you pictured. Tell us what's going on today through H&H in Honduras.
Today, and this is all Holy Spirit inspired. I take credit. You guys have heard a bit of the lead into my testimony. This is a product of God, God's power, people opting into it.
Yeah.
But today, what I'm most proud of is that in communities where, like I said, they'd never had success stories before, they'd never had people reaching new limits, they'd never had somebody who would say, I feel like I've fully developed what God put inside of me, and now I get to use it. And now I get to help people with it. Like that just wasn't the reality for anybody. So what I'm most proud of is when kids who come from these communities that every predictive sign in reality would have said that your spirit and soul are going to be crushed. Like you're going to be a shell of who God made you to be. My favorite thing is that when in these communities, a new way opens up. And people are able to, from a young age, understand who they want to be and pursue it successfully. So like when girls start, who the reality is it's just hard to, in the Honduran mindset, in a rural place, invest in girls' education. Like women typically in those spots don't go to the labor market. They don't get to use the skills that they invest so much money and time to acquire. And so my favorite thing is when girls from these communities start to graduate from university, move back, become professionals. One girl last week, she just graduated early 2025, became an X-ray tech. And so we send a group of doctors down a couple times a year. She was able, instead of being on the side of the people in the communities who need to receive the care, she was an X-ray tech working with a radiologist. Wow. Actually being a professional delivering, this help. Wow. And so that's what I love. That's a transformatively different outcome than anybody ever could have experienced. Like that girl, she really feels like she's living the life that God called her to. And like the best is still yet to come. she still has goals and she's still working on them. That's in a person story. Her name's Adamaris. Her dad also, like in the midst of this, her dad committed suicide. Wow. And so that's what hope is in a nutshell. It's a mindset, Holy Spirit inspired. No matter what you see or experience, it says that I believe like the best, or I believe that the best is yet to come. And probably most importantly, I'm going to act like it because God is who he says he is. Yeah. And so I love seeing children, who had no chance become all kinds of different things and really feel like they have the opportunity to. What it leads to is we follow what the community's board of directors, their legally required leaders, we follow what they say in a strategic planning process. And so usually it's, we need clean water, we need electricity, we need to know that our kids are going to have a better life than we have had. So they want school, they want predictable education, they want a path really normally from daycare through university, like when you're able to listen for long enough. Yeah. And then the parents really desperately want the ability to support their kids. They want to earn some income. Yeah.
One of the unique things that I wish wasn't as unique as it is to how you guys operate. A lot of times well-meaning people come into a community that's in poverty of whatever kind and come from a Western mentality of, okay, we'll just fix these problems. And we assess it and we do what we think these people need. You guys take the approach of it's community led. You come to support them in the dreams and vision and hope that they have and help them to realize those things. But the story in the end is never about you guys. And your goal is to leave this hope and the tangible changes in their hands to go for generations and not even need you in the end. How did you develop that kind of a strategy, and how have you seen that relationship playing out with these communities and embracing them and letting them lead? And also, what challenges does that bring as people who sometimes probably want to go, oh, I think you should do this, but you're the board, you're in charge. How do you manage that tension, and what's ultimately the fruit is what I'm asking.
Yeah. Oh, great question. I hope to not get too technical because I love it. I really nerd out on this stuff. Yeah. But so the work that we do, I guess, in the nonprofit world is called community transformation. There's still not many orgs like us want to do community transformation because it's typically, an 8 to 15 year partnership. Yep. A lot of money over lots of years. And it's very difficult.
Tangible fruit isn't as quick. And so it's sometimes probably not as easy to report back. Here's the tangible way your money's making a difference, I would imagine.
Yeah. It's called, in the industry, it's called M&E, measurement and evaluation. If you want to get any kind of significant resources, then you have to be proving to whoever gives you the money that not only is it a good investment, but it's better than others.
Yeah. We built this well and fed this many kids or whatever. Yeah.
Which we're going to report what we do, but we're also here to do something new, and we're not afraid to experiment. There are donors who really believe in us. And so with that money, we're not afraid to try something that might not work. Yeah. And so it's really hard to find people who are like, yeah, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur. When I was building my business, I had to take some risks. So I'm going to take a risk on you. Right. Most people don't really, it's hard to find that kind of donor. But anyway, so there are all kinds of orienting strategies. And I'm getting to the answer to your question, but all kinds of orienting strategies. You could have asset-based development, which means that you develop something tangible and valuable, like a cow business, that has real legitimate worth to it. Yeah. And then you create strategies to bring people forward based on the income that comes from those assets. Yep. That's one. You could have community-based development, which says that the leaders of the communities, their leadership is the most important. So we're going to continue to reinforce their decision-making, teach them how to lead. Obviously, charity is one. There's all kinds of ways to think about this. We do, and as far as I know, H&H is unique. And this is part of the download that God gave me in 2007 when I went for the first time, that parts of it, especially the feelings, have been really clear. Excellent work is built on listening. you're here to build hope. Like hope has been one of those I somehow picked humanity and hope when I wasn't even a believer. But so we do hope-based development. Hope is a mindset. A mindset is like the center in American English of a human being. It's like your spirit and your will and your soul combined. And through that mindset, we have 40 to 60,000 thoughts that are born into our head every single day. And so to create a hopeful mindset, you only need three things. You need a goal, something to wrap yourself around. You need a pathway to get from where you are to where your goal is, and the creativity to imagine other pathways if it gets blocked. And then most importantly, and this is what we spend probably most of our energy on, you need agency, or you need power, or you need to believe that your spirit can be united with God's spirit to do really important things for yourself and for other people. And so what hope-based development says is that it doesn't really matter what we pursue as long as it comes from you and you say that it's important and we do it successfully. Like, we're here to build this mindset that always says that I believe that the best is yet to come, and I'm going to act like it, and I'm going to funnel that action into a specific goal that's been socialized with the leaders of my community that we're going to pursue successfully, and then do that year after year after year after year with what we as the leaders say is the most important thing for our community. So that's our philosophy, is that we build hope. We build this ability to see reality with God's spirit overlaid on top of it. And we measure that hope too. It's hard to measure a mindset. And I think that we might have pioneered this, but I worked with a couple scholars, fellows from the Brookings Institute. One lady's from Peru in her 70s, grew up in areas like this. And so we built a way to actually measure hope over time. And now we're linking that with actual outcomes. So it's like, let's say you score a 9 on the hope scale out of 10. Predictably, what does that mean that your education's going to look like, your income's going to look like, the age of first pregnancy, what's your health going to look like? Is there any stunted growth? And so trying to combine all of that together, but basically hope, measurable hope that leads to different and better measurable outcomes. That's what.
It's going deeper than seeing a problem, putting a Band-Aid on it. Because if the mindset and mentality of people doesn't change, then that will be a fix for a month. Yeah. And then it'll just go back to the same old way. And you guys are bringing to them, through your partnership, the ability to believe this can be the new way that we live. It's not just like somebody helped us with this emergent need today, but it's someone's equipping us to actually go live the lives that we dreamed of for us and our kids and their kids, that's transformation ultimately. But it is hard work. It takes patience. And like you said, it's harder to get donors. It's hard to get people to give to something that's like, hey, would you plant a seed with us here? And it might not bloom for 15 years. It might not be until 2 generations from now that we truly see the impact of what we did. How do you stay patient and stick to your vision along the journey of ups and downs with donors, ups and downs with communities, failed projects, successes, all of that? What keeps driving you to run after the vision God gave you way back when you were first even just thinking about helping some people?
Yeah. Well, a big part of it is the grace of God himself. There have been times where, and this has been, the last season I had like this was probably 6, almost 7 years ago, but there have been times where it's felt so difficult and like such an uphill battle that I've prayed for God to take this calling away from me, to be like, oh man, it feels like, if I'm being honest with myself, that I have to pursue this. Like I can't wake up in the morning and look at myself in the mirror and have given up on this if I want to be the kind of man that I've always dreamed of being. And so I've got to approach it honestly. And if I approach it honestly, unless God takes away this burning desire inside of me, then it doesn't really matter how difficult it is. I like to tell myself that I can put up with difficulty, as long as I really believe that God has himself put me here, that he's the one who continues to inspire me. And so really it's by God's grace that I've been able to stick with it. And, there are a lot of things that we do get to do successfully, a lot of things that are very meaningful. Like seeing kids graduate from university, from communities that hadn't even had elementary school graduates.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, that's what sets my spirit so much on fire that it's easy to put up with a lot of other, you've got wheels of success and iteration going at the same time always.
Sure. Let me ask you this.
Wait, here's one more thing to add. One thing that was really helpful for me in my last season of great struggle, I hit 10 years of working with Humanity and Hope.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to fund. This was during COVID. And so I'm like, God, like I'm going to stay here. Just like, give me a gift here. We're turning 10 years old, give me a gift, give me something meaningful. And what I got was just keep showing up. I prayed and prayed and prayed. I fasted, and like that's what came. Just keep showing up. And so I took that very literally. It's like, all right, all I need to do is like make it into the seat, give it my best, and that's what I'm shooting.
Just keep showing up.
Yeah,
that's great.
What would you say to two audiences? First, somebody listening that's going, man, I'm where Riley was when he was at rock bottom. I don't know who I am. I've kind of diverged from who I thought I was going to be. I've run from the life that I ultimately think I should be living. I feel hopeless right now. What do you say to that person?
Yeah. So I would say I'm very practical. So I would say to myself back in that time, set a service goal. Great. But that's my thinking. I'm very very ambitious. So like set a goal as it relates to service. Try to do it, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. I would also say, do the things that it takes to make people healthy. So go to counseling if you need to, go see a doctor if you need to, if there's medication that you need to be taking. And then, really focus on building deep relationships with people who you admire and respect for the best reasons.
Okay, next audience. I have some people in mind that embody this. Two couples that have a kingdom dream, some resources and vision to go and do some transformative work, to just serve and help a community in need. What's some advice you give to somebody that's at the very beginning of that kind of a dream?
I would say recognize that you are God's gift. You are a gift of God's to people, and let that sink in. Be proud of that. And then trust the fact that you don't have to control it. So like, don't be forcing your ideas. Trust the fact that God's going to use you to do something important for other people, but also for you, for generations of your family.
Good. For all the people listening, coming from all kinds of different walks of life, what do you want people to know ultimately about H&H and what you guys are doing?
That we want you to come visit us. Awesome. Yeah, like anything, it's one thing to talk about it. It's completely different to experience it.
Sure.
And so like we love growing our family. And so we love people to come experience it.
You guys have teams come down and see what you're doing, help with projects, kind of get some vision for it all through the year from all over the country.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about La Cuchilla and why that community is so meaningful.
So La Cuchilla, started working with them in 2017. And the backdrop in Honduras was 20 minutes away was the most dangerous city in the world, San Pedro Sula. The country was in such a difficult state that it was losing huge percentages of the population every year. I think like 5% of the people in the entire country were leaving to immigrate to the United States at that point. The president at that point, he's now in prison, but he was a narco trafficker working with the military to move product from Colombia up to the US. And so Honduras was just was chaotic. And in the midst of that, La Cuchilla was known as the abandoned hole. So like in the midst of all of this difficulty, like La Cuchilla stood out for being a place that was, obviously lesser than. And when people would say that in Spanish, it's el hoyo abandonado. And people they would talk about el hoyo, but they would never say it in front of the residents of La Cuchilla. And so it was just in a tough place, in a tough country, this was just known as being the worst of the worst. None of the kids went to school. There was a rumor that criminals from the big city, child abusers were living in the forest. They didn't have a school in the community. So I think it's only like 10% of kids worldwide who are elementary school age who never get a chance to go to elementary school. Wow. It's like almost every kid worldwide at least gets to experience elementary school for a bit. Right. And the kids in La Cuchilla, I think they had like 10% of the kids going to school. So like nobody was going to school. They live in what used to be a banana plantation area. Chiquita owns it, and nobody could find jobs. And so it was just, it was really, really difficult. And so we brought in this hope building strategy, generationally, that lifts people to new outcomes that nobody from the area has ever experienced. Put it into practice. The community chose to, number one, create jobs, farming jobs, plantains. Then we completely expanded the labor market by bringing in jobs for women. They became entrepreneurs, business owners. We built a school in the community, worked with a Honduran nonprofit to do it. So there's all this momentum moving forward. And then the community says, hey, now that we have electricity, clean water, school, a healthcare clinic, we want a safe place to live. And so we started building homes. And Red Rocks actually, back in 2019,
that's right.
We were back at Peach Soap before we had a building.
Yeah.
Red Rocks built one of the first ever homes. And then the next year, two of the biggest hurricanes in the history of Honduras hit, flooded the valley with like 12 feet of water. Jeez. And it hadn't done that. It had never done that before. And they hadn't had a hurricane for about 30 years. But so the house remained, but it got covered in mud and water. And so we went to a new strategy of building homes that are elevated high enough to be able to take a flood.
Dude, I remember being on a Zoom call during that, and some of the guys jumping on looked like they had spent all day doing like relief out there, and then they were jumping on a call to check in and give us the update. It was like a really wild time.
You had to take boats out there. I mean, in places where you're normally farming, 5 feet of water sat for like two months.
Jeez.
So, anyway, we did a redesign, and then did a concert tour with Red Rocks Worship.
That's right.
To get that kicked off, which was really fun.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see Corey. And then, so the first fundraise we built, there are 45 families in the community. We built 5 homes. Last fundraise, we built 15 homes, and now we're looking to build another 15 homes.
Cool.
So cool.
You guys also do a great job of inviting people in and also making it doable to help on a small scale. You've done campaigns, we've put the word out of like $20. If you can get you and some of your friends, $20, let's start stacking this up and get some homes funded. So if you are listening and want to spread the word, tell us a little of the timeline and goal as far as getting these 15 homes built.
Yeah. So we officially started fundraising last week. Online, we have, sure, like every organization, we do a mixture of online, and then checks or personal banking. And so online, we're at $48,000 now.
Come on.
By the time this comes out, it'll be higher. I guarantee it.
It's going to be so much higher. Well, and then, an hour after this podcast,
then
it's probably
completely funded
be
and then some.
even higher. But we have $48,000 online so far. But in terms of commitments and checks that people told me are going to come in, and this just started last week, but we're at a little over 140,000.
Great.
Let's go. Come on.
So almost halfway there.
Okay.
1 week in. We did design it so that there was like a huge just like jump of momentum in the beginning. We're hoping to fundraise for these houses this summer. So we're hoping to hit 300,000 by the end of August.
Okay.
This is the third time we've done it over 6 years. So with H&H's donor base, it's great people, But this is, the third time that we've asked most people to participate.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily know how it's going to happen, but we're following our model. We're listening. This is the community's number one goal now over 6 years. And we're approaching it with hope. Just believing that like God wants these people to have safe homes more than anybody else possibly could.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's my challenge to everyone that's listening or watching. $20.
Yeah.
Our episodes right now are probably averaging a little over 1,000 views. So pretty close to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But if 1,000 people give $20, who can do that math?
20,000.
Ryan.
You'd add it.
20,000. Let's build one.
That's a house.
That's a home.
Let's go.
So let's do it. Afterthoughts
Afterthinkers.
podcast home. If you want to do more than $20, that's allowed, right?
It is allowed. It's even encouraged.
It's even encouraged. But I think beyond just it's a good thing to do, just like a small step like that, and eventually that's going to lead a few people probably to get on a plane and come with you guys, which I hope happens. But a small step like that, just on an ordinary day, life's happening. We're all just kind of doing what we always do. And a lot of our lives just each day kind of get tunnel vision back into our thing.
Yeah.
That little break from all that and stepping out and just going, I can do that. I can give $20. I can give $100, whatever. Knowing that it's going to help somebody have something that I don't even think twice about is just good for your soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a refreshing feeling to remember what we're ultimately called to and loving our neighbors, even if we can't see them because they don't live across the street. So Afterthinkers, show up.
Let's go.
Be a part of this. Let's build a home. And dude, thank you for sharing your story. I feel like,
Thank you, bro.
we wanted to have you here to talk about this and help fundraise because we believe in what you guys are doing and we want to see these communities transformed. But the bonus is getting to hear your story.
Yeah.
And from where you were to what's happened and seeing God work in and through your life is really inspiring. And the way that you have persevered, of course, your answer is always going to be, it's the grace of God, and it is, and it's his goodness, but you've been a faithful vessel through a heck of a lot of seasons of ups and downs and have stuck to what he called you to and leveraged every way you can. You and your friends are awesome because whatever platform, whatever thing's going on, you guys are like, how do we use that to serve somebody else and transform a community? And it inspires me. So thank you for sharing with us. I think there's people probably listening right now that can relate to very different eras of your story. But the hope is every single person gets to a place in life where they are pouring themselves out for a kingdom dream, a kingdom vision, and you do that really well. So thank you for that. Thanks for serving coffee at our first vision night.
Yeah, bro.
And being a friend to us in our journey of this whole thing and keeping up with us through Red Rocks Austin. And we won't know a lot of these stories till we're all in eternity and get to watch people come up to you and go, hey, thanks for starting that because my cousin's here. My daughter got to have a life that we never would have guessed. So you'll have thank yous for a lot of your life and then more to come in eternity. But one from us today for all you do. We love you, dude.
Love you, brother.
Yeah, thank you guys. Likewise, it's been the dream of a lifetime to be able to go on this ride with you guys, to see this turn from an idea that was born from a church now that you guys just have such a unique identity. You're able to build so much life in a demographic that seems to be slipping out of the grasp of the church. And so likewise, love what you're doing. Love you guys. Really inspired. I'm glad you have more friends in Austin now than just me, although I am a little selfish. I could use more time, but
I agree.
I love you guys. I'm and I love being a part of Red Rocks, even though with the travel sometimes it's peripheral.
Yeah, that's okay.
Very proud of what you guys are doing.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, bro.
Oh, and for the Afterthinkers,
Yes.
great name. Here's a quote that, and you guys can finish it up, or we can.
No, you close it. You
close
it.
with a quote.
Okay,
I was going to ask, could you close us with a quote?
This has always been very meaningful to me. And Howard Thurman said it. You probably heard it, but it says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and then go do it. Because what the world really needs are people who've come alive."
Boom.
Phone drop.